For more information on my programs, please visit massajati.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.
Welcome once again to the Earth Mystery Show. It's a beautiful day on Memorial Day 2018. Sunshine, I think summer has come to Nevada City. You're listening to KVMR 89.5 FM, Nevada City, KCPC Camino, with translators K286AN in Truckee at 105.1, K285DG Angels Camp at 99.5, and K230CA Woodland at 93.9 FM. I've got Masati on the phone, and we're going to have a fun talk today. Before we start, I'd like to thank the Briar Patch Co-op, healthful foods for all diets, plus vitamins, supplements, probiotics, and over 500 items in bulk. Community owned since 1976. Everyone welcome. Briar Patch Co-op on Facebook and Instagram. Moss, welcome to the Earth Mystery Show. Whoop, push the button. Moss, welcome to the Earth Mystery Show.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Haines.
Well, you don't know anything about me. I don't know anything about you. That's the cool thing about the Earth Mystery Show. I never meet my guests in person. I never talk to them. I don't do anything before the show because I want it to be just as natural and new for the listeners as it is for me, not just a rehearsed conversation. So the first thing is, you are going to be in Sacramento in July, and we're going to come back and talk about the dates and what you're going to be doing. You are right now in Australia, of all places.
Yes.
It's noon in Nevada City. What time is it for you over there?
4:30 in the morning. I just got used to the time zone.
Oh, my goodness.
The time zone change.
Thank you so much. I keep telling people that the Earth Mystery Show has changed the sleeping habits of Nevada County. People are actually getting up to listen to this show at noon. So 4:30 in the morning. Thank you for getting up to do this.
No worries. Yeah, actually, people who start meditating with me and so on, it's a different type of meditation all around the world. They actually they set their alarm clock to meditate with me. So it's kind of like the same thing. We parallel lives, Haines.
Well, the thing that interested me about you, that wanted me to have you on the Earth Mystery Show, is I read from your publicist that you had a near-death experience. And then after your near-death experience, your life was transformed. So let me just start at the beginning. I know it might be boring for you to tell the story that you told audiences. Oh, no. What happened, the near-death experience, to start?
Well, actually, Haines, I've had two near-death experiences. The first one, I'll make it short, and then you can ask me the broader questions. It's on the website, massajati.com. But the first near-death, Haines, really opened me up to the realities of who we really are. Because right now, we always think, and this was in my early 20s, we always think that this reality is real. And the first near-death opened me up to, say, the full potential that we are. I had a injury, a warehouse injury, where I crushed my jaws, and as I pulled away from my body, I separated from my identity of that, what I call that 1% of who we are, right? Our identity of human form, pulled away and experienced who we are at 99% of our potential. And Haines, obviously a vast difference of 1% and 99%. At that the 99%, well, you are everything that you could possibly be, right? You have the ultimate power, abundance, no matter in what form, is yours. So that's the story of the first near death. This is where you have your life review. I reviewed my life from a very different standpoint. Obviously, and I tell people it's not a life review; it's a life relive. You go through from a higher perspective, and you relive your life the way it should have been, with your higher knowledge. There is no I should have, I could have, why did this happen to me? Like why did God forsake me or anything like that? You start to see the real reasons why things happen to us, and then perpetuate yourself forward from it. So it's quite beautiful. The second near death, which happened about in 2006, late 40s. That was quite interesting. It's very different because there's a ton of near deaths that happen every day just in the U.S. But for me, or the reason why I'm different, is that tunnel of light, Haines, that people talk about, that people go through and then they come back. What happened to me is that I actually transcended that tunnel of light, so I graduated past that tunnel of light. The first level is where people say that, their loved ones, pull them in or welcome them in. There's layers of life reviews, and there's about 13 other layers, but people who graduate that tunnel of light never really come back, or hardly ever. I happen to graduate past that tunnel of light, and at that level, I saw who we truly are again at a much deeper level. This is where there's no time and space. This is where you are completely abundant. This is where you don't need anything. The amount of love that you feel at that level, about 1 million times more than anything you'd feel at the level that we're at here. And then I transcended at that level, though, you have an identity of human form. I even went beyond that. I call it the beautiful blue space that in some, say, religions or spiritual thoughts they talk about. That blue space I identify as the universal knowledge base. And that universal knowledge base is where all thoughts, all ideas, concepts, anything that ever was, is, shall be, is there. And from that experience, as I got pushed back into my body, and literally got pulled out. It was a drowning accident. I got pulled out of the water. I was pulled into a tunnel, and I got pulled out through divine intervention, and set close to near the shallows of the water. I managed to come back, and from there, that's where, say, some people call it supernatural abilities come forth, where I can help transform people's lives, where they say the fastest way possible. A lot of individuals say. So.
What were you doing before this? What was your life? How did you make a living? What was your daily routine?
I was a successful computer programmer. I had my own company back in the day, mid '80s, late '90s, not '80s, late '90s, early 2000s. I was web design, high-end web design. So nowadays, back then, I used to be a high-level programmer, using keyboard and mouse. Nowadays, I literally program people's lives, just with a different language. So,
okay, so from a computer programmer to a people programmer, there was
a people programmer. Exactly.
There's a transition there.
Yes.
How does one make that transition? Do you wake up in Brazil from your near-death experience and say, "Hot damn! Now I'm going to go heal people and teach meditation"? Or there obviously was a defining moment where you realized you had a different life and you could do things.
Right, and that different life was so dramatically different than what we normally go through. I call it the dark nights of the soul. Just like a ton of other people that go through this transition, right? It took me about 3-4 years to understand my abilities. It took me about 3-4 years of, say, deep meditation that I was drawn into. And these meditations, it's not like, okay, I'm going to go meditate like most people do. At a higher level, or my higher self would go, it's time to meditate. And I would get drawn into meditations that would last maybe 3 to 5 hours long. And to me, I'd be thinking that, maybe it's just a few minutes, but I'd check my watch. It's like, dang, that was a 5-hour meditation. So you basically get disconnected from time. And at that level, downloaded with a ton of information on, why life is, how life works, how human identities work, how space-time works, all those things. So it took me about 3-4 years of of experiencing and reformatting my identity, where we us as humans, we think that we're human having this spiritual experience, but in reality, the way I see it now is that transformation of, say, a spirit having a human identity or a human experience, and that's how I live, a spirit having a human identity. So we all have these potentials, by the way. It's not just me, and that's what I do. I guess you could say I bless these potentials that we all have, or open them up to individuals.
Are you married? Have kids?
Yes, I do have kids. I have 6. Recently got divorced about a year or so ago, and that's another thing. I transitioned so deeply, where my wife held her space, or my ex-wife held her identity, and got more fearful in her belief systems as I started to awaken and expand. So
that was my point. What happened there? Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people want to go along, some people don't, and
exactly.
Obviously, she didn't.
No, not at all. Very religious, and again, as I say, moved into beyond say religion, and again, religion is a great stepping stone at some level, but we go beyond that. She is clung on to her religion, so it was kind of. But for the kids, I've got 6 beautiful kids, ranging from like 7 years old up to 22. They're all, say, enlightened, so to speak, or they understand. So it was an interesting and very expansive divorce for all of us. So
now you give seminars, you have a website, you do podcasts. Yes. Tell me about that. What is your role now?
My role now basically is I help thousands of people a week, through group sessions or what I call meta healings, and a meta healing is that I guide you into a deep state of meditation, and I call it meditation because that's the closest thing, but it goes beyond meditation, or what we call hypnosis, or even NLP, or yoga, or anything like that. I guide you into a deep state of meditation, and then I work on you at your, say, non-time identity, or your spirit level, if you want to call it that. And then together we combine our efforts. You're in your body, complete, identifying with your body, which is a time being, space-time being. I'm on the back end, or what I call your source code, helping you awaken. We combine efforts, and that's where people recover from severe illnesses, or they recover from patterns of abusive relationships, or they recover from financial issues. There's a ton of testimonials on the website, and it's quite amazing. By the way, I don't heal anybody, I don't cure anybody, or anything like that. I awaken your own innate natural abilities, so you can do that yourself. Seems like just reading you, and I can read people their life history. Seems like you went through some recovery yourself, if that makes sense, or somebody around you went through some recovery that helped you understand how life works, so to speak.
Of course.
Yeah.
Still going into things that I'm not sure I want to talk about on the radio, but of course, personal health issues that I wish I could overcome.
Yeah.
Wish I could overcome.
Yeah, and we can talk about that later. Okay.
Sure. So listeners driving around on Memorial Day don't have a pen and paper. They're not thinking of anything but going to the river or getting some sun. So we can repeat this a few times. You're going to be in Sacramento. Could you tell me when and where?
Yes, we're going to be in Sacramento. Let me just pull up my calendar. On the 14th of July.
Excuse me, 13th and 14th?
Yes. I'm trying to find out where. Here we go. The Friday. It's a Friday event. It's an intro event, foundational event, and it's not just a get together on information. It's actually a workshop, and people can actually transform their lives just at the intro event. And then Saturday, it's a significant success workshop. It's an afternoon workshop and group sessions, which is quite intensive. So that's coming up Friday, Saturday in Sacramento.
And do you know where? If you don't have it handy, I'll find out.
Where? Oh, we haven't decided quite yet.
Haven't decided
on the location.
Okay, well that's not a problem. I can announce that beforehand on my show and try and get people aware of that.
Thank you.
So
yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. I look forward to meeting you. But and we're going to repeat this. We're going to repeat. You're going to be in Sacramento, July 13th and 14th, and then people will be calling. Where is it going to be? And I'll say, well, we'll let you know.
We'll get that information.
We'll get that information and let you know. So. Back to you and healing, because of course I'm interested in healing. What I do when I'm not on the radio is I'm a physician, I'm an MD kind of physician.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, I've been to a lot of healers over the years, especially in South America and Brazil, and one of them, a guy named Valentin, who's in Brasilia, he took one look at me and said, "Doctor, nice to see you." And I said, "How did you know I was a doctor?" He says, "Because I see you're carrying the weight of all the patients that you see. You're carrying their stuff, and I can see it clearly." So what I'm going to ask you, since you are involved with healing in a certain way, even though you're not a doctor and trying to, officially quote unquote healing, a lot of people get healed. How do you keep from taking on their stuff?
Right. I see pretty much the same thing in you as well. You're such a nice guy that you do carry on to individuals. I actually start to help people resonate at a higher level or a higher frequency, because it's all about frequencies and space-time. And I know it gets boring, but so that's why if you want to talk about it, we can. But so basically, you start at the lower frequencies. This is where diseases and illnesses and basic lack start to attract onto you. They latch onto you. As you understand yourself at a higher level, right, you resonate at a higher frequency, and at those higher frequencies, well, things like disease, any sort of lack doesn't stick to you. So you naturally are an abundant being, including health. And this is where, if you look at me, I'm 58 years old, but people tell me all the time that I look like my early 40s. So, and other individuals as well, as I help them again resonate at a higher frequency, they start looking more and more youthful, and they start getting rid of the diseases or symptoms of old age or issues of like familial patterns that we carry, including lack in the physical realm, like money and habits of bad relationships and so on.
Well, I've heard you mention prosperity and you just mentioned lack and stuff like that. So many of my listeners and so many people in the world seem to be stuck in lack or stuck in lack of money. They, their whole lives revolve around getting up in the morning and doing something that they don't like and coming home exhausted, trying to make enough money. So how does raising one's vibrations attract prosperity?
Sure. It's very, very effortlessly, actually, and it happens to a ton of people, again, as they raise one's vibration. And it's not just being mindfulness. That's different than, what I talk about. You just literally resonate at a higher frequency. So what happens is, and this is why we're all shortcoming or always in a sense of lack. Even including people that I work with now that are like millionaires and and even beyond, they still feel that lack that we all feel, and the reason being is that most individuals think that the abundance that they're looking for example, money, right, is always outside of themselves. But if you take a look at relationships, somebody always goes, well, I need somebody to complete me. Right? So they're always looking for that abundance or that completeness or that health outside of themselves, and that's where the error happens. when you're always looking at something outside of themselves, and even including as I tap into your listeners, they're very, say, faithful or very spiritual, very good individuals, but they always think that, God is going to help them, again, an outside version of, say, God or whatever you want to call it, spirituality. But whenever you're outside of yourself, you seem to be incomplete, so you perpetuate lack. What happens as you ascend higher or vibrate at a higher frequency, you start to notice that everything is deep within you. And as you vibrate higher, the garbage or the filters, as I call it, that distort your vision of who you are, starts to peel away, starts to flake off. You get to see the brilliance or the abundance of who you are. And literally, you start to, say, absorb the abundance that you are. This is where better jobs come forth. And I'm not saying things just show up for you, although things do show up for people. This is where health comes into more focus. You get to start to see the underlying reasons of why things happen the way they do for you. And that's the key as well. I pinpoint the underlying reason of why things happen the way they do and help you delete them, where you can actually move on and really, say, heal yourself. I can give you an example, perhaps maybe to clarify things.
Sure.
Okay. Say, for example, that we have issues with relationships, and you can replace relationships with health or money or anything like that, but a lot of you, as I just as I scan the group, and by the way, as I give this example, I can even say work on your audience, and your audience, if you guys want to give Hans like feedback, that'd be fantastic, on how you feel or how you feel, or maybe some body aches or neck pains and all that stuff start to, say, disappear. You might wonder why that's happening for you, or you might feel a little different. But anyway, let me give you an example. Say, for example, that you've been abused in this lifetime, or that abuse comes from a pattern of a mother figure. Okay? You go on to have relationships. So when that abuse happens, whether it's your life experience or just a pattern that you've absorbed from, say, your mother, just like the way you get your hair color or eye color, you get patterns of abuse as well. That just transcends down. Right? It's hereditary, as we call it. So that creates a filter on how we see life. So later on, we'll absorb or experience, because we're running patterns of abuse now. Later on, we'll accommodate relationships, or we'll attract relationships that will keep abusing us, because that's what we expect to happen. So you break away from one relationship, you'll attract another relationship, and I'm sure a lot of your audiences can relate to this, and it's of a similar relationship, again, abuse patterns. And then we disconnect, we go, gosh, that person wasn't good for us, what's going on? I'm gonna go find another person, and this happens over and over again. Same thing with relationships, with money or anything, or illnesses even. What I do is I go back and go, hey, let's go read your files on how you see life. And I go, at, say, 12 or 13 or whatever age that abuse might have happened to you, you got abused, right? Let's remove those lenses that we see life through back into, say, a clear lens of how life should be without the abuse. And then your relationship patterns radically shift. And that's where you start to accommodate or attract people who, don't abuse you anymore.
Well, you're right about that abuse thing. We've all heard about women who've married 2 or 3 different people and gotten beaten up every time. And you think, how could you do that? Didn't you learn your lesson the first time? And your story is very apt.
Yeah, and people go, people go, well, gosh, are you dumb? Or how can you not see that? Because they can see it, but they get the pattern that they run is so strong, because it's a frequency that gets generated from what I call that pattern, or what I call a program that runs in you, that it has to create, say, abuse. But what if you deleted that program of abuse? for those individuals, and they don't have to accommodate abuse anymore. And like I said, in a very short time, and sometimes almost immediately, they'll run something different, another pattern, and that's where relationships become what I call organic for them. So,
in the early 70s, Jane Roberts wrote the Seth material, the channel material from Seth, and
I remember that. Yes.
yeah, his take-home lesson, which was kind of the mantra for the New Age after that, was your beliefs create your reality. And I used to correspond with Jane and her husband for years while she was still alive. And my question to them was always, okay, if you take that as true, how do you know what your beliefs are? And their answer was, well, you look around and what you see is what you created by your beliefs. So I've had a wonderful life, so I guess my beliefs must be wonderful. And
yes.
But if you tell a person that, they get instantly mad. No, they don't. My beliefs don't create anything. And I'm poor because blah 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 blah, or I don't have relationships because blah blah. They have a reason that they, and then the reason is manifested to prove their belief in that reason. So no matter what you say, there will be a manifestation to prove their belief is correct. So if that system is true, how do you break it? How do you get through to change it?
Right, and they hold on to that belief system because their reality is tainted by the filter that runs them, from that program that runs them, and that's why they can't see, say, what you're seeing. Right, they see reality from a very different perspective. Again, because they're wearing a different lens, and your belief systems is a definition or a reflection of what you believe. I totally agree with that. But what I do, and I call it Xponential Intelligence, by the way, the name of my podcast, is that how did your belief systems get created? And that's where people have issues with, and people go, I know this pattern is not good for me, but I can't seem to get away from it because they can't go, one step behind and then go to the core level programming of why their belief systems is the way it is. Right? We always get to the surface level because we're aware of the surface level of our belief systems, but we can't go a step further and see where, say, that fountain of thoughts or fountains of belief come from. There's a difference, Hans, I was going to call you Seth, but Hans, is that people go, well, just think positive thoughts. But there are people who naturally think positive thoughts. That's where we want to get to. Why are some people naturally prone to thinking, say, positive thoughts, or naturally prone to be successful, or naturally prone to not be addicted to anything? A good number of your listeners seem to be, say, addicted to certain things. But what if you got, say, rid of the underlying program of why we think certain patterns?
Here's an example.
The thought process will naturally change.
Here's an example I use all the time. People that have allergies, lots of allergies, they will tell you, I have allergies because there's pollen in the air. And one example, I used to work in an emergency room. A lot of times when people came in with asthma, my mother used to say, asthma is just anger. Ask people, how old are you? And they will answer in the middle of one of these horrible asthma attacks, 2, 3, some ridiculous age. It's not true.
Yep.
And it's when something happened. And often if you find out what happened, it's something scared the bejabbers out of them. A great big dog came and growled or barked right in their face when they were 2 years old, and they were frightened to death. And from that fright, they developed a belief that the world's an unsafe place. A minute ago, I was happy with Mom, and then this big dog came in and was growling in my face, and that just proves that the world's unsafe. Something bad could happen anytime, even if I'm in the loving arms of my mother. So that belief is unknown. It's in the subconscious. It happened when they were 2. And now they can't breathe because they've got allergies, but the allergies are based on a belief that the world's an unsafe place. And here, this proves it. I can't breathe. So it's so complex and it's so hidden. That's my point, that it's so complex and it's so hidden that if I were to sit down and say, well, why do I do this or why do I feel that? I have no clue. I have no clue where that belief
Right.
started as a very little child. And it just doesn't come to me to change.
And you're absolutely correct. And so what I go, what part of my abilities actually is I can actually go back to, say, that point in time on why things happened to you the way they did. I can go back into, say, if your mother had issues during pregnancy or, whatever had happened, like some of you, from what I'm seeing, is that, your mother had a terrible time during pregnancy, and that chaos that's wrapped around you, you think that the world is about chaos, and now you live in a life of chaos because that's what your belief system is. So one aspect of my abilities is I can go through, say, the book of life and go, oh, this is what happened to you at this age. Not only go back and pinpoint the root cause of your issues, but then also pinpoint and, say, delete or edit that reality so you can release that identity. In this case, like for your example, removing the fear around that time so you can move on with yourself and recover.
And when you do this on podcasts or meditations on the internet or live, like when you come to Sacramento in July, you're dealing with a big group of people. So how does the individual in that group get your personal look-see into their life?
Sure. That's a very valid question. So at an individual level, I can scan through and go, oh, this is what happened. At a group level, I can scan through, say, the group, whether it's hundreds or thousands. I can, say, put them in categories. I scan through, and also what I call subgroups. But, Hans, I'm not the one who heals you. Basically what I do is I vibrate at a higher frequency, kind of like tuning forks, right? Mm-hmm. I vibrate at a higher frequency. With my abilities is at a group level is I force the group to resonate at a higher frequency. So it helps you to awaken who you truly are. And then as you awaken your own natural healing abilities. Right? At a higher level, you get to see your life from a different perspective, whether at a conscious level or a subconscious level. Sometimes what happens, at a group level, people just break down because the memories of, say, childhood traumas and so on, start showing up as a way of release. But either, again, subconsciously or consciously, people start to see what they're not, and then they release it on their own. So what I do at a group level, again, is awaken your own natural healing abilities in that sense. But at an individual level, if you had to say private session with me, I would go, oh, this is what's happening to you, or I could scan your body and, like lower back pains or lower abdominal issues or whatever, and that might be you, by the way. Let's see what's the cause of that. And help you, say, reprogram yourself.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. Everybody would want to do that, I'm sure, but there's too many people in the world for you.
Right.
So Mas, I want you to say your name for me because I'm terrible at names, so that the listeners know who my guest is today. I'm Haines Ely, by the way, Earth Mystery Show, KVMR 89.5 FM, Nevada City, KCPC, Camino.
My name is Mas Sajady, Sajady.
I would have said it correctly, but I'm fearful of screwing up your name. Sorry. And
no worries.
Mas is going to be in Sacramento. He doesn't know where yet, but it's going to be July 13th and 14th. I will get back to the listeners as soon as I find out where, and we will be able to guide people down there. But if people want to do stuff with you, I noticed you have a group meditation in June, starting in June, on the internet.
Right.
And
yes.
So tell me about that.
So it's called a 21-day meta healing. And again, we do this every month. It started as a pilot to see how it works. And, within the first 4 days, by the way, there's a website I can send to you. You can offer to your listeners. The first 4 days would be free for all your listeners. They can sign up and actually test it out themselves before they invest anything. Within those first 4 days, you can actually start to see the realities that you think are you. Basically, those distortions start to say flake off you. So what it is 21 days of meditation, and again, it's a meta healing where I guide you into a deep state of meditation, and then I help you reprogram yourself at a much deeper level. I call it your source code level. Some people might call it your spirit. You do that twice a day with me for about 20 minutes, and people all over the world. We meditate with people all over the world. So there's anywhere between 4 to maybe 800 people throughout the world that will literally wake up at that time if they're in different time zones and meditate. So quite powerful because you have the power of the group. I call the mastermind, helping us pull away from the shackles that bind us, or the blocks that we face that we can't get through because we've got such momentum going. Very powerful. And again, and I'll send you the link if that's okay, and you guys can try it out for free for the first 4 days.
Well, if you just say the link, maybe people can write it down, and if not, I'll write it down and repeat it for you. And if you don't know it, I'll look it up and say it later.
Okay, yeah.
I think if you just went to your website, if you just looked at his name, M-A-S.
You can go to the website.
First name M-A-S and last name S-A-J-A-D-Y. Just Google his name and website and go there, and the meditation will be there.
Right. You can go to masajati.com. masajady.com. Look for the 21-day events under calendar, and it should be there.
So,
and we'll put up a link where you can click on, say, the free first 4 days for free.
I noticed the price wasn't very expensive. We're not supposed to talk about prices on this show, but I noticed it was nominal, so it's not a big deal anyway. The times, I noticed there are certain times of day. What if you work at that time of day, or you're on your way to work at that time of day? Is there a make-up time that you can do this, or other times, or do you have to be online at the right time?
No, you'd be in Sacramento, so it's 7:30 a.m. p.m. Okay. Those are the times that they're recorded live for you. However, the recordings are just as powerful as long as you're consistent with it.
So you could listen to the recording at listen to the recordings 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock or something before work.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. However, the first few times, it's preferred just to be on it live if you can, just because you get the mastermind effect going.
So and the first one coming up is going to be June 1st.
June 1st, yes.
Great. There are a lot of meditators in Nevada City, in our area. This is a very spiritual area, so I think no problem here for that, and it sounds interesting.
Oh.
Is your meditation... go ahead.
I was going to say that if you go to my Instagram, at Masajati, Mas_Sajati, you can click on the link on the bio, and people can access the free 4 days right from there.
Cool.
Because it's a long URL, yeah. So you can do that as well. Okay.
So your meditation, how does it differ from other, classical forms of meditation?
Right. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with those classical forms of meditation.
No, but when people tell me they've been doing Vipassana for 40 years, and I say, are you enlightened? And they say, well, I'm working on it. And I say, well, you've wasted 40 years. They get mad.
That's exactly what I say. I totally agree with you, Haines. And that's why I said there's nothing wrong with that, what they do.
Nothing wrong, but it depends on what your goal is.
Right. Or the religions they practice, or the spiritual. Right. Because if they're not getting, say, the same results as, say, the creator of those religions, like you said, obviously they're doing something wrong, right? You want to know the bottom line results. So the difference between what I do is it's not a mindfulness state that you're in. You go beyond the mindfulness. So that's why I say it's different than meditation or NLP or hypnosis, where all those practices literally say help us escape our body, and then we try to go into our higher selves, which is actually the distortion that we can only go so far with that process. What I do is actually pull you into your body. So literally your higher self gets wrapped into you, so to speak. So you start to identify your physical form. And as you do that, you start to become aware of what's yours and not yours, deeper level. And that's where you get to move away from what's not yours. You get to be your real sense of self. People who have issues meditating fall into, say, deep states of mindfulness with the process that I do.
And your meditation is eyes open, eyes closed, sitting up, lying down? Anything special?
Mostly standing up.
Standing.
Yeah, there was the same way that I got drawn into meditation, 3 to 5 hours of meditation. I was drawn into them standing up, but you can do it any way that you'd like, standing, sitting, lying down. It doesn't matter, because it bypasses, say, the physical state you're in.
Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. Very.
I'm always curious for things that sound interesting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm also interested in healing, as you know, and you say you're not a healer, but if someone comes to you primarily because of a health problem, let's say the finances are okay, but health isn't, and nothing's good if your health isn't good.
Exactly.
You're not going to recommend anything other than do my 21-day meditation and let your body figure it out, or you have another plan.
Well, I have the private sessions for individuals because this is, and again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to cure you or anything like that. But what happens is that I work with a lot of people. In fact, my sister, she's a cardiologist. Sometimes she has tough clients that she can't figure out, tough patient. She can't figure out what's going on with them. I can scan you and see and give, your doctor hints on, say, what really is the issue that's going on with you to, one, help you awaken yourself to remove it from your identity, or two, help you awaken, say, your doctor or practitioner, or even you, to attract certain things like medications, remedies, or foods, whatever it might be, to again help you heal yourself. But it all goes back to helping you awaken your sense of self. Yes, I can do one-on-one where I can pinpoint exactly what's going on with you.
How much do other lifetimes, whether you want to call it reincarnation or past lives or present lives in parallel universes, how much do other lifetimes influence what happens here? Do people have poverty or have health issues or have wealth or have whatever because of some other other parallel life?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. And that's all about space-time. It's how the previous lifetime gets, say, closed up or summed up. Kind of like I look at it as, finalizing the books. So, for example, there's been individuals that say that they're always running away from life. If that makes sense, they're never trusting anybody. They have, say, sharp pains in their back, and then they tap into me. I tap into them, and they, I go, oh, in a previous lifetime, it's like you were shot to death. Mm-hmm. So you're running away. You're always looking backwards. You're never trusting. You're always in a hurry, right? Those are patterns of somebody running away. So what in those, say, previous lifetime issues, somebody would, say, escape their body. Their spirit leaves their identity or their physical form before their body physically dies. Kind of like when you chop a fish's head off, right? The body still flops around, although they're disconnected. That creates a timestamp. So you run from that template that's programmed now. So as you come back into another life, you naturally are always suspicious, always feel like you're running. You might still even remember, the pain in the back as you got shot. But a lot of times, Hans, a lot of the familial issues come through. So it's kind of a merging of previous lifetimes and then familial issues. There's this woman, for example, when I tapped into her, and this was a phone conversation, because I can read you, I can sense you, whether you're in front of me on the phone or Skype, or I can read loved ones through somebody. But this woman, she had like abdominal issues, and I go, and everything comes up for me. I go, oh, you've had a few, pregnancies that didn't work out, and she's going, no. And then, it just kept coming out so strong. And then it's like, finally she goes, yeah, I had 3 or 4 abortions. She was very ashamed. And that was the guilt that was causing her abdominal issues, and feminine issues as well. But, I tapped into her mother, and I go, you know what? It just seems like your mother might have had like 3 or 4 abortions as well. And that really is like clicked in. It's like, oh my God, she did lose 3 or 4 kids. And then, tapping in, it was just a generational issue or program. Again, just like your hair color, your eye color, they got a pattern of, say, having abortions or losing kids. And that's why her sister had issues having kids. She didn't have abortions, but she had issues having kids that lived. So that pattern was in the family, and so helping her, say, remove that pattern, her abdominal and feminine issues start to recover.
Cool.
And she got rid of that pattern. Yeah.
Cool. Our guest today is Masati and Sajati.
Perfect.
And he's going to be in Sacramento July 13th and 14th. Next week's, it'll be 2 weeks from now. Anyway, I'll come back and tell you where before July for sure. And I thank you so much for being on the show.
For more information on my programs, please visit masajadi.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.